Hello and welcome back to Capitol Hill Ocean Talk on oceanslive.org. I'm your host, Kate Thompson with NOAA's Office of National Marine Sanctuaries, coming to you live from the museum in Washington, D.C. for Capitol Hill Ocean Week 2014. Throughout the week, we're bringing you informal, behind-the-scenes conversations with some of the most influential ocean leaders here at CHOW. If you have questions for your guest, please post them in the chat. We've got a full house of very knowledgeable guests in the studio to talk to you about protecting special ocean places today, starting with John Racanelli, CEO of the National Aquarium. John leads a team of 600 full and part-time employees and 1,000 volunteers in pursuing the National Aquarium's mission to inspire conservation of the world's aquatic treasures. More than 1.5 million people annually visit the aquarium in Baltimore, Maryland. Next, we have Matt Rand, Director of the Global Ocean Legacy Project for the Pew Charitable Trusts. Matt works with citizens, governments, and scientists across the world to protect and conserve some of the Earth's most important and unspoiled marine environments. Previously, Rand was a director of the Global Shark Conservation for Pew, and he also spent 10 years with the National Environmental Trust. We also have Shiva Polefka, Research Associate for American Progress's Ocean Policy Program. Before joining American Progress, Shiva worked with more than 5 years in the Coast and Ocean Program at the Environmental Defense Center in Santa Barbara, California, where he conducted analysis of the environmental impacts of local natural resource challenges. Also joining us today is someone who has been a guest on Oceans Live many, many times, Dan Laffoley. Dan is the Principal Advisor on Marine Science and Conservation for the IUCN Global Marine and Polar Program, and also acts as a Marine Vice Chair for the World Commission on Protected Areas. He is a leading global expert on ocean conservation who has a place on the boards and councils of many United Kingdom leading marine science organizations and acts as an independent advisor to the United Kingdom's government on marine science. And last, but certainly not least, is Dr. Mark Schaefer. As Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Conservation and Management, Mark is responsible for oceans and fisheries activities at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Throughout his career, he has served in a variety of positions in the federal government and private sector, including most recently as Director of the U.S. Institute for Environmental Conflict Resolution. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us on Capitol Hill Ocean Talk today.
Thank you, Katie.
So our topic today is special places. Before we get into our conversation, I want to show the video for the new sanctuary nomination process, since it ties in so closely with everything we're going to be talking about here today. Let's roll that now.
This is Edward James OLMOS. For the first time in years, the doors open to establish new national marine sanctuaries. I challenge everyone who cares about our nation's ocean and coasts to make your voice heard. This isn't just about the environment. It's about taking a stand for the special places you hold dear. This is your chance to let America know, to let the world know, that this place matters to me. We have an opportunity to make a difference, and it's up to all of us to take responsibility for ourselves and for future generations.
Such a great announcement that happened yesterday right here at Capitol Hill Ocean Week. So I'm just going to start us out with some fun, informal questions regarding special places. So Mark, thanks so much for joining us. Can you tell us what makes a place special?
Well, I think it's in the eye of the beholder. People like knowing that there are places out there that are different, that have special features. They may be physical, they may be biological, they may be cultural. It could be a shipwreck, it could be a coral reef, it could be a place where whales pass by. They are places that inspire people to sort of think broadly about the world around them, and they're places that have influenced all of us here, and I think influenced our lives and careers, so they're very important.
Matt, do you have A special favorite ocean
I
place?
certainly have a special favorite ocean place, but I very much also agree with Mark that I do think it is in the eye of the beholder. My two spots are Palau, and there's a small atoll off of Ponape called Ant Atoll. But I do think we actually give too much emphasis on just special places. I look at land conservation and try to learn from what has happened on the land. Initially, in land conservation, we protected mountains and temperate rainforests, but we're now turning a lot of our attention to desert ecosystems, and that was only after almost 100 years of other types of conservation before we actually started focusing on desert conservation. So, I guess my point is, when it comes to the ocean, the whole ocean ecosystem is important to the overall function. So there are special places, but I do think we give too much focus on just special places.
Dan, being from England, what's your take on that?
I agree. I agree with both my colleagues, as you might expect. I think that it's in the eye of the beholder what is a special place. So it is like, if you look at a place, do you see the heartblood of your business? Do you see a history lesson? Do you see a classroom? Do you see a place of amazing beauty, or do you see a wildlife haven? And they're all ways in which we see things as special. And the slight worry I have about just talking about special is because there's special things we don't know about yet. And so we've got to be careful to factor in a broader approach as well, looking after the jewels in the crown, but also looking at the areas that may not have values that immediately resonate, but are places that form part of this jigsaw puzzle, as I call it, of what will amount to something that is going to turn the corner against all these challenges, problems, and threats we hear about the ocean.
Right, John, so many people can't visit these special places in the ocean.
Right.
And your job is to bring that to the average person that won't get a chance to necessarily go there. So can you tell us a little bit about what the aquarium does to do that?
Absolutely. Aquariums are acquiring, I think, a new role, which is all about being able to really kind of inspire. And in the case of the aquariums just in the U.S., 22 million people a year physically, and then tens to hundreds of millions of people a year digitally about these special places we're talking about. And I think the other thing that we're all very mindful of is that it's all about networks too, and the whole idea of marine protected networks, such as the California Marine Life Protection Act and the network that it established along the California coastline, gives us this opportunity to, really kind of address virtually entire ecosystems. I think that's something that we in the aquarium world need to do more of. I think we need to imbue our messaging with more conservation action-based messaging as well to get people engaged.
Shiva, why is it so important to protect these places, these special ocean places?
Well, I think we've known for quite some time, going back to the time when Ulysses Grant, President Grant, created Yellowstone, that special places just have a tremendous amount of intrinsic value, whether it's cultural or natural. They're places we go to get upliftment, find some joy, unwind from urban life, and we've built on that legacy, I think, on the dry side of the shore really well, and the Sanctuary program helped us move that perspective offshore, but we're still in the really early phases of that. But what we're finding now, I think, with contemporary scientific research is that when we protect special places and have something close to a healthy, complete ecosystem, it provides so much more economic value than we realized, thanks to the diversity of ecosystem services that healthy ecosystems provide for us. And so when we identify a special place, and I agree with my colleagues, there are still places that we don't recognize as special yet that have a tremendous amount of value to them. But when we protect them, we have a model for how nature should function when it's most healthy, and an opportunity to derive just tremendous benefits from that healthy ecosystem in that protected place, whether it's a nursery for valuable fish, whether it's supporting coastal economies with recreation and tourism. And so, drawing some lines on a map to protect some of these special places is really, I think, as indispensable to marine natural resource management as it is to terrestrial resource management.
Right. Well, we've mentioned parks on land multiple times so far in this conversation. Mark, everyone knows about national parks because they're the special places on the land that we can all go to and enjoy. But how do we take places like national marine sanctuaries that could be like Cordell Bank National Marine Sanctuary, it's offshore, or Flower Garden Banks, that's offshore. How do we have it become a household name? How do everyone know about it?
Yeah. Well, I think it can become a household name without expecting people to actually get out there and directly experience it. And as was pointed out well, aquariums offer a great opportunity for people to be exposed to something, to be introduced to it. And hopefully it's kind of your guys' job to hook them for us and make them and make them want to get out there, at least a subset of people, to experience it directly. And I think it's helping people understand the many facets of these places. On one level, you may see a coral reef and it's beautiful, and you see the fish associated with it and so on. But I think we have to help people understand that there's layers of knowledge embedded in there. There's very important things happening in these special places, and with all the stressors that our coasts and oceans are facing, these are places that we're trying to leave alone to a large degree, and sort of keep them as currency that we may need in the future, depending on what happens.
Well, John, I know that, speaking of that, don't you have something going on this year regarding national marine sanctuaries to advertise what we do and, the lecture series?
It's been fantastic. The Marjorie Lynn Bank lecture series has been a sellout. And again, I was telling some of my colleagues this morning, we've had, we have a theater that holds about 300 people, and it's been a full house, which is great. But we've had up to 5,000 people online doing it, watching via Google Hangout and other tools. So we're finding out that that's a great platform, and it's been fascinating. We've had people like Ed Lyman, Bob Talbot, of course, Sylvia Earle kicked the whole thing off. And this fall, we'll be having some people like Jim Delgado to talk about, some of the heritage aspects of the sanctuaries. It's been wonderful, and it really tells us there are a lot of people that really care about this. They want to know more. I think the key to Mark's point is the ocean is still, we study our audience as much as we can, not just the people that are in the aquarium, but also the people that aren't there. And what we find, of course, is that for a lot of people, the ocean is this amorphous, unknown quantity. And we've, part of what I think we all need to do, each in our varying ways, is establish with people that it is relevant to their lives, that they do get, again, the ecosystem services. Let's start with, as Sylvia tells us, 3 out of the next 5 breaths we're going to take coming from the ocean. And just as importantly, as we show them these beautiful, pristine settings that we create in an aquarium, that these places do face threats. So this fine line we have to walk between showing them and conveying the beauty and the splendor and the uniqueness of ocean habitats and ecosystems versus reminding them that they have a part to play to do something to preserve these places in the state that we hope that they can stay in.
Well, Dan, I know that coming up in November is the World Parks Congress, and I know that they're having a lineup for ocean issues in itself. So at the global stage, how's the world connecting with and linking with marine conservation here in the United States?
Well, we're doing more and more of these things, and we're creating new technological experiences, if I call it that, for many more people online to get involved. So we have a partnership with Underwater Earth. Underwater Earth, people may not be familiar with the name, but they're the people who do Underwater Street View. And so this is proving, it's one of the most viewed bits of Street View on Google, and is proving tremendously successful alongside things such as the Ocean in Google Earth, which has gone to over 1 billion people around the world now, to actually give people that engagement point in their daily lives, taking the ocean to them. So we're doing much more. We're going to launch more at the Parks Congress. But there is a point I want to come back to, which is I still think there's more we can do when you get a nature connection with people. So the people going to the aquarium or political people on the coming to Washington, where they, for the first time, engage in an ocean issue. One of the things that we're starting to think quite hard about is what is it that we can do, what is that ladder of engagement we can take them on? So that they don't just go away knowing about, say, the Sanctuary program, but we've actually given a sort of an engagement ladder where they can progress along it. And I know we're doing this in various shapes and form, but I think it's a matter of capitalising on that and sharing that around so that we can grow our community. We need many more people not just being touched by the ocean, but actually being empowered.
Mm-hmm. Shiva, what's your take on that?
Well, I think I fully agree with it. We depend so heavily on the ocean, and yet a lot of folks have their summer vacation plan where they go to the beach and they get a perspective of the water, and it's kind of going out to the horizon, and they're able to splash around in the surf, and everything seems relatively fine, and not really aware. I mean, that's kind of an awareness issue that pH is declining, or
out of sight, out of mind, in other words.
Exactly, or fish stocks are dwindling. So that combination of knowledge and then empowerment, I think, is really a critical combination. I completely agree with that.
So Matt, I know Pew also works internationally, and we can't obviously do all the work here in the United States, and it is one ocean. We're all connected. So why is it so important for other countries to protect these special places as well?
Let me get right back to that, but I wanted to kind of touch on some of the things that were said here. I think it is important that we engage the public, but it's just as important that we actually are bringing the message up to our leaders, because ultimately it's the leaders that are making these decisions that are so key to the health of our ocean. It was brought up, Ulysses S. Grant started the whole national park system when he established Yellowstone. We look at some of the marine monuments that have been done. They've been done, by presidential proclamation. So I think it is very important, and obviously Congress has a role in the sanctuaries. So I think it's important that we're continuing to bring this information to our leaders as well, to make sure that they are fully aware of the need for marine reserves and other conservation measures for the ocean. To your question, it's vitally important that we engage other countries when it comes to protecting special places. Obviously, the United States has the largest EEZ in the world, so that's an incredible gift for the United States, but we will not get to the levels of protection that we need, that scientists have called for, that politicians have agreed to, unless other countries step up and rise to that occasion. And we're seeing that happen. We're seeing small island nations rallying in major ways. Palau has announced its intent to close their waters to commercial fishing and create one of the world's largest marine reserves. We have a community in the Southern Pacific, the Pitcairn Island community. It's a UK overseas territory that are fully supportive of creating what could be the world's largest marine reserve. But if we are actually going to get to the level of protection that we need for the ocean, it's critically important that other countries take up this challenge as well.
Right. Mark, go ahead.
Could I two things I'd like to say? First, that I have this guru. She's 28, and she is our social media maven, and she is the person I'm learning more from than anybody else in the world right now. And she pays close attention to. She has a blog that actually has more followers than Times Online Edition. And she's really gotten me focused on the idea of relevance and importance. We do what we all do here is very important. We know that. And we have very important messages we're trying to get out to people. The problem is, if it's not relevant to the marketplace that we're trying to talk to, then it's that importance. It's it's the fool on the hill singing loudly to nobody. And so getting it to be relevant to people is crucial. Getting it down to terms that they can understand, because that does drive how hopefully a citizenry responds to its elected officials, its policymakers, which leads to the second point. I'm amazed we've gotten this far in the conversation and none of us has evoked Sylvia's key word here, hope, and her description of marine protected areas as hope spots. I think there is a lot of validity to the idea that that is still the most powerful motivator for human beings, and that if we can give them hope with some backing, it can't just be false or fond hope. It has to be hope that has some basis for actionability. Then I think we're doing our job and we're doing it well, and that's what we need to accomplish with a public that isn't yet that informed on the issues that we care about.
Exactly. It's like communicating the science too, and the reason for the science.
Yes.
And we actually do have an episode on Thursday regarding communicating science, and we will have Richard Vevers from the company that you had mentioned earlier doing the street view of the ocean to be able to get people engaged in what's going on at that depth. But Mark, going back to the leadership piece, you're one of our leaders with NOAA, and it's a balance. It really is when it comes to economies and it comes to the uses of the ocean and how we create that balance. Can you talk a little bit about how we can do that and how NOAA does that every day in our jobs?
Well, part of leadership is helping people understand what the possibilities are, or to provide them a hopeful message. We do try to focus on our communications at NOAA. It's always a challenge in government because often communications is one of those areas that is underfunded. But we try to think carefully about how we can help people understand the range of stressors on the ocean and recognize that individuals can make a difference. We look at the ocean and it appears to be vast. We think we can put all kinds of things into it and it's not going to have an impact. Here we are, 2014, and people are suddenly recognizing that the amount of CO2 that we've been putting in the atmosphere has been so high that it's actually causing a decrease in this vast body of water. So we have to help people understand that individuals, communities, NGOs, businesses, government entities at all levels can very much make a difference as to what our ocean will look like in the future, and that they should not dismiss it as something so big that they can't have an impact.
Well, I'm going to go back to John, what you had said about Sylvia and our special hope places, because I think communities are hope places as well. And they have to know what's at their shoreline. They have to know that it's not, even communities in the middle of America, that they impact the ocean every day with whatever they do through their watershed or their backyard. That part of my job is trying to communicate that to all of the United States, not just to Californians and to Floridians that live on the ocean, but people that live in the middle of the United States. So like yesterday, we had our Volunteer of the Year, and these people do great things. And at the Aquarium, you also have amazing volunteers.
1,000 volunteers who do it because they love it.
Yeah, so I think that's an extreme part of this story, is having everyone to know how they impact the ocean every day and how it impacts them every day. So that's a big thing. I'm actually going to end today with the question of, we watched the nomination video earlier. It's the first time in a really long time, over a decade, that we've been able to even look at potential new sites to protect within NOAA under the sanctuary system. So I'm just going to ask quickly of all of you, what's your take? Is this a great thing for us? It's a great thing for the U.S. and for NOAA to have this ability to protect these new places. So I'm just going to see what your thoughts are.
It can only be good. We all worry about whether or not there's enough money to enforce and to properly protect and all that good stuff. And of course, those are critical considerations. But the idea that we can get back to naming some of these, identifying some of these places, I think is hugely important. We've all been focused on the idea of maybe Mallows Bay on the Potomac to become a heritage sanctuary. And last night we were talking about, or why not just the whole Chesapeake? I think it opens the door for some creative thinking that is positive and helpful and hopeful.
Matt, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I see no downside to it whatsoever. We have to start identifying these special places and starting really to build support for their protection. So I think it's a great opportunity, and now we need to take advantage of it.
Shiva?
Yeah, I agree as far as there just being no downsides. I think the sanctuary system has really kind of stalled out for a while with a lack of growth and relatively flat funding. And to Mark's point about leadership, NOAA staff are just tireless leaders, I think, in trying to understand the marine resources that we have, deliver that knowledge to the public and to other stakeholders. And there's, I don't think, a better example than Sanctuaries as far as kind of crystallizing those efforts into particular places. And when you have that tangibility of a particular place, the community rallies. And you mentioned the volunteer award last night. My experience from Santa Barbara is just an astounding amount of effort that goes in to the ocean because of that special place from constituencies that are often at odds with each other. You have commercial fishermen working very collaboratively with the conservationists on an issue like ocean acidification that is meaningful to both folks or both constituencies. The commercial shippers and the Navy, and again the conservationists working on whale protection because they have a sense of that place. They have a stake in it, and they have a forum provided by NOAA to tackle those issues in a constructive way. And if we can bring that focus and that framework to other places around America's vast EEZ, I think we really might be able to make some progress on these grander challenges that we're thinking a lot about this week.
Great, thanks, Shiva. And Dan, from a
global perspective. Well, when I look at all this from a global perspective, and I look at the challenges we face, and we face challenges which are unprecedented in the time humans have been on Earth. It's the rate and it's the scale of change. We need everyone's minds on this. This is not something where only a proportion of the population are the shareholders in the ocean, if I can call it that. Everyone's a shareholder in the ocean. So from that perspective, we know through other examples that have been tried overseas that this is a really great route to go down, and it can only be positive.
And Mark.
I think Dan put it well, and just to expand on that, this is kind of an all-hands-on-deck situation here. Our coasts and oceans are facing very serious threats, and we want to engage the public in a conversation about what they want their coasts and oceans to look like. It's not for us to define it. This is a democratic activity, so part of it is for people to decide what do they want in terms of protected areas, what do they want to keep, and what types of activities are appropriate in those areas. But more broadly, we want people, has been pointed out here, it's not just special places. In a lot of ways, our coasts and oceans are all special places. We want people at whatever level in their communities to engage in a conversation about what they want their coasts and oceans to look like in the future. It's a democratic process. It's a Jeffersonian principle. Let's engage people.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me today. What a great conversation. I'm really excited about where we can go from here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it for this episode of Capitol Hill Ocean Talk. Thanks to all my fantastic guests, and stay tuned for more Capitol Hill Ocean Week right here on oceanslive.org.